Week 8's Fanball slate is all set to go, just as my dog barks. Hi, Hattie. There's a Thursday night 5x5 with the Vikings and Chargers. A Sunday and Monday night 5x5 are on the docket as well. But there's also the Peacock, which has a top prize of $1,000. There's a high five, there's a buck hunter, and more. We'll tell you all the best players to play on today's episode of Fantasy Football Almost Daily. But there's also a Thursday night football contest on the Fanball mobile app for only $1. Join now on Fanball and use the promo code ALMOST for a $20 deposit match. We're also brought to you by GameBlazers, where fantasy football meets mobile gaming. It's like Madden Ultimate Team, but for fantasy football and with real cash prizes, including $36,000 in Week 8 and $75,000 next week in Week 9. That's a new record for GameBlazers. Contests are all free to play with lineups set from your own inventory. Use promo code FFAD for a one-time deposit match of up to $100. Go buy yourself some packs, build that inventory, but you got to download the GameBlazers app today. Today, we dive deep into the Sunday slate for Week 8 on Fanball with T-Bone Jones. But first, here's some royalty-free intro music.
From the Sports Hub Games Network, this is Fantasy Football Almost Daily with your host, Matt Harrison.
Hey, this is Matt Harrison along with Trevor Jones. It's Fantasy Football Almost Daily. And Trevor, Spotify decided that since they host our podcast, that they no longer wanted me to use Less Than Jake for the intro music, even though I have permission from Less Than Jake to use their intro music. They were like, nope, we're going to take you down in Bosnia and we're going to take you down in Herzegovina. And then all of a sudden they started taking me down in, the United States and Canada and all those good places where people like to listen to the show. We have a big following in Bosnia, though, I guess. So, I mean,
I was going to say most of our listenership, I think, is the former USSR states. So makes sense that they had to black out the American music over there.
They love us in Ukraine. They got nothing going on. They're just playing fantasy football. Trevor Jones, you've been on fire lately on this show. I had a couple of good picks last week, too. I think between the two of us, we've been really raking up some good W's here on this show. Before we get into that, we got to go around the league and check the latest news.
News team, assemble!
They haven't told me I can't use Ron Burgundy yet.
I just had that thought too.
Jaden Daniels looks likely to miss Week 8. They play on Monday Night Football against the Chiefs, but it looks like Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel both might go in this one. It's the Monday night game, though, so you might need to have some other plans and some backups upon backups. Luckily, the Chiefs are on the other side, and there are some guys that you could pick up if you needed them for your lineup.
Yeah, and I don't love Deebo or Terry if Jaden's not going to play.
Yeah, that makes it a lot more difficult. Bucky Irving out for another week, and Mike Evans is having collarbone surgery. It sounds like the earliest he comes back is the playoffs. He's on IR now. Pretty safe to drop him in leagues that don't have an IR spot. Another Florida receiver, Darren Waller, also headed to IR with a pectoral issue. And Lamar Jackson, he's limited in practice on Wednesday. The Vegas line on the game, last I saw, was Ravens by 6.5. So they're thinking that Lamar Jackson's going to play in this one. I think that he probably will too.
We might get a little deeper on Mr. Jackson later in the show here.
I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, but Aaron Jones is for real. And he might play tonight. He was limited this week, fresh off IR. I'd be surprised if the Vikings force him into action on Thursday night. The Jets, they are an absolute mess, and I probably could leave it at that, but I'll mention that Garrett Wilson missed practice. We think he's out this week as the Jets are on bye next week. Tyrod was also limited, so we might see Justin Fields again. And Breece Hall was limited, but they say he'll suit up.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do is not watch any Jets football for a while. So
what if the other
You
team
just go
is
on
fun
the-
to watch?
and then I guess I'll have to watch like the first quarter and a half until the game's over. Yeah.
Nico Collins and Christian Kirk both took Wednesday off of practice for the Texans. Collins with a concussion and Kirk with a hamstring injury. Ricky Pearsall, he missed practice again. I don't think he goes this weekend. And this one's interesting, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later. DeAndre Swift missed practice on Wednesday with a groin injury. Roshan Johnson also missed Wednesday practice for the Bears. Kyle Monangai was the only healthy Bears running back in practice last week.
He was. I've seen a little bit of him in the Big Ten at Rutgers the past few years. He's a nice player.
Yeah. All right, time to dig into Week 8. We encourage you to go try out Fanball, both on the web and the Fanball mobile app. Salary cap games are on the .com. The Fanball winners game is on the mobile app. There's a $1 Thursday night Vikings-Chargers matchup on both. There's a 5x5, and there's one on winners. So go make some picks. It's good times. You'll have a lot of fun. But let's talk about our favorite and least favorite guys as we go to DFS time.
It's DFS time.
Royalty-free DFS time. Week 8 is a bye-pocalypse, meaning it's a 6-team bye week. Most of them are West Coast teams, too, so that's kind of interesting. But we don't have a London game, nor do we have a Monday night doubleheader, so it's throwing a couple more games back on the Sunday slate. So it's a pretty normal Sunday slate. Trevor, you can start. Who's the player who's going to be getting close to half your lineups you'll make this week?
Yeah, we'll start with an easy one here. We'll go with, you mentioned Bucky Irving is likely to be out this week. Rashad White, 6,200 at New Orleans. White's essentially taking the every down role for Tampa. He iced backup Sean Tucker last week, getting 63 of the 69 running back snaps. New Orleans has been getting destroyed by opposing rushing attacks. They allowed the 4th most rushing yards on the season, including just 222 last week to that Bears team with Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. That Bears team had previously only put up 145 as their season high. White's a good pass catcher, helped his floor. He's had 15 catches across his last 4 games. Talented back on a good offense, getting a ton of touches against one of the worst teams in the league. Just put him in your lineup. Don't overthink it.
I'm distracted out my window. There's a guy on the roof of my neighbor's house holding a ladder for another guy who's climbing up to a further higher roof. And I'm like, this can't be safe. What's going on?
They're running the stairway to heaven. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, my God. Sorry for the distraction, but, that's what happens on podcasts sometimes. Let's start with my guy who's going to be in close to half my lineups. It's the same guy I used last week. It's Bijan Robinson, 7,900. And I used him here last week, but he had a down week. His down week was 21.2 Fanball points, though. So that's okay. This week, it's an up week. He faces the Dolphins, who just made me look like a genius when I told you to start Quinshon Judkins against him. Every lead back to face the Dolphins this year has had at least 98 yards.
Man.
That's insane. And I stole that stat from Scott Fish, by the way. Kudos to Scott Fish.
I don't think he'll mind. No, that's a good one.
All right, a player above 7,000 on Fanball that you don't have in any of your lineups, Trevor.
Yeah, so it's funny. This guy last week was my put him in 50% of your lineups, and this week he's don't put in any of your lineups. So that's CeeDee Lamb, $7,600 at Denver this week. It's the toughest matchup in the league for receivers. Denver's allowed the league's fewest points to receivers. They've held the following receivers under 50 yards so far this year: Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman. Lamb should expect to see plenty of shadow coverage from Pat Surtain too when lined up outside. Obviously, Lamb will see a decent amount of snaps in the slot still. It is a scary fade because seemingly every Cowboys game just becomes a shootout that if you don't have multiple pieces of it, you're not winning that week. Mm-hmm. So it's a little scary, but if there's a spot to fade him on the road against the league's best corners, probably the spot to do it.
Yeah, it was crazy that Giants-Broncos game last week got to 65 points in that one. So
right.
It feels like if the Giants can do it, I think the Cowboys could probably get there as well. They're just going to have to do it in a different way. The guy that I'm not putting in any of my lineups, it's Saquon Barkley, 7,300 against the Giants, his former team. And it's a half decent matchup, but something's just not right with Saquon. He's only averaging 3.3 yards per carry. He scored only 4 times in 7 games this season. And get this, he's been kept to 60 or fewer rushing yards in 6 of 7 games this season. Do you know how many times he was kept to 60 or fewer rushing yards last year?
Once.
Twice. Week 6 and the Super Bowl. That was
Okay.
The Giants defense is allowing 5.3 yards per carry, but they held Saquon Barkley to 67 combo yards on 14 touches in the prior meeting. And like I said, just something doesn't look right. And maybe it's just that the players who get over 300 touches in a season, Saquon and Derrick Henry, they both look bad this year, and it just might be they're tired.
I had that thought too of, Larry Johnson, Priest Holmes, LT era, where we had the stats of, a guy gets 450 touches in a season, which basically doesn't happen anymore, except Saquon when he goes to the Super Bowl and averages, 25 touches in every single game. So I do wonder if it's just he ground down a lot of tread on the tires, right, from last year. So
for sure, those things are bald right now. He's got to go in and get some snow tires for sure.
Yeah.
All right, our favorite quarterback picks of the week. I'll start this one. I have Bo Nix at 6,200. Insert QB facing the Cowboys. It doesn't hurt that Nix basically had 30-plus fantasy points in the fourth quarter alone last week, and I believe he's the only quarterback in NFL history to have 2 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns in a quarter. That's nuts. We pick on Dallas every week, but let's just say this. The worst quarterback day somebody's had against them was last week. It was Jaden Daniels, who left in the third quarter of that game and still had 21.3 Fanball points.
That's a great stat. Played 3 quarters of the game, hit value. Very funny.
Not even 3 quarters of the game. He barely got into the third quarter.
So I'm going to go with a very similar player to Jaden Daniels here. We'll go with Lamar in his return back to the field, 7,200 at home against Chicago. In 3 full healthy starts this year, Lamar has averaged 240 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. To go along with 40 yards per game on Chicago's played 3 real offenses this year. Apologies to and they got beat up by all 3 those non-quarterbacks there. Goff put up 330 and 5, Dak 250 and 1, and the best comp we just talked about, Jaden Daniels, 210 and 3 through the air, plus 50 yards, the rushing yards on the ground in a gross weather game just a couple weeks ago. And I do hate using this analysis. It's hard to quantify, right? But there's no team this season that maybe is in a more desperate spot than Baltimore for a win. Like Baltimore as a home touchdown against Chicago, you have to win. They can't take any more losses to even have a shot at the playoffs potentially. So I think this is a Lamar blow-up spot.
Yeah, it has to be. My budget pick is Lamar's former, I think they were teammates for a second there, Joe Flacco. I think there was a little bit of overlap when they hired Lamar.
At least the 1 year, yep.
Yeah, Flacco's 5,300. He had 47 pass attempts last week, and he had 45 the week before. The Bengals are just going to pass their way out of this mess. And this week it's the Jets, who've actually been better against the pass recently, but this is still the team that gave up 4 touchdown passes to another 40-year-old quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and Dak Prescott earlier this year. Those guys also like to pass the ball. I think it's not going to stop Joe Flacco here from passing the ball. The fact that Sauce Gardner and a couple of Jets on an 0-7 team are over on the other side of the field.
No, not at all. And again, I'll make a case for somebody here, but if you're taking one of our cheap quarterbacks, it's Joe Flacco is the right answer. Like you said, you're getting 45 passing attempts, and he's going to throw 20 apiece to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So
yeah,
he's the right play.
Jamar Chase in a little bit because I found some just insane stats.
If he gets another 25 targets this week, yeah.
Oh my God.
So we'll go with Michael Penix at home against the Dolphins, 5,500. A lot of this is just Miami's on blowout watch every week, I think. We're all just waiting for, is this the week that McDaniel gets it? They just got demolished by 25 to Cleveland. Penix has put up an average of 268 passing yards over his last 3 games, along with a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. The Dolphins have allowed multiple touchdowns to every single quarterback they have faced. That includes Bryce Young, Justin Fields, guys who are on the verge of losing their jobs. Dylan Gabriel didn't reach it last week, but partially that's because they didn't need to throw the ball at all. Penix is a little bit limited in practice. Sounds like he'll be good to play. And if for some reason you do need to play Kirk Cousins, you can save $500 and just throw him in on on Sunday afternoon.
I was actually searching for some free agents in one of my leagues on my fantasy league yesterday, and it showed Kirk Cousins with a projected 16 points, and I was like, "Wait a minute, what? is gonna start in this one? Maybe, I don't know." Running back plays. I have Christian McCaffrey as my expensive pick here. He's 8,500. The price tag is through the roof. The matchup is about the worst it can be. So nobody's going to be on him this week. The Texans are number 2 in rushing yards allowed and number 1 in receiving yards and receptions and all of the other passing stats to opposing running backs. But they still give up a decent day to Kyron and Etienne. They gave up really good days to Bucky Irving and Zach Charbonnet. And Bucky was really the only above average pass catcher they've seen this year. And he found his way to 6 catches and 50 yards. Christian McCaffrey is going to find his way to 12 targets again, which means he's going to get 10 receptions. He's going to find a way. It's going to be fine. If you're in a tournament play, you're playing the Peacock this week, or you're playing the Buck Hunter that's got a lot of players, I kind of like using Christian McCaffrey as the zig to some of the other expensive runners.
Yeah, that's a good call, I think. So my expensive guy is JT. And then you already mentioned Bijan as a guy that'll be in a lot of your lineups.
Yeah.
JT and Bijan will be the heavier owned ones. So I think you're right about if you want to play tournaments, I think CMC is the guy you want there. So yeah, JT at home against Tennessee, 8,700. It's highest price on the slate. We don't really need to spend a lot of time here. He's been the best back in the league. Colts are a massive home favorite over Tennessee. JT took this same Tennessee defense apart just a few weeks ago in week 3. 118 total yards, 3 touchdowns. Now gets to face them at home. Tennessee's allowed the most rushing touchdowns, the 3rd most rushing yards this year. Indy's got the highest total on the slate by 1.25 points. They're projected for over 30 points. The Colts have 26 offensive touchdowns this year. JT has 11 of those. It's just a smash spot, right? The guy's probably projected for like 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. So even if 8,700 is a lot, right? The ceiling is maybe not quite there at that price tag, but the floor is incredible.
Yeah. My budget guy, Kyle Monangai, we talked about him a little bit before. He's only 4,400. Mentioned that Swift and Roshan are both hurt. Monangai was the only healthy back in practice, and he's coming off a week where he had 15 touches last week. 94 combo yards and a score. His usage has been ticking up over the last few weeks. Ben Johnson likes to use 2 running backs. This week, the Ravens get some of their healthy defensive members back in the lineup. But you can't ignore how bad they've been so far. The 7th most combo yards and the 4th most touchdowns allowed to opposing running backs. If Kyle Monangai is the lead back here, he's just in a really good spot.
Yeah, I didn't see the DeAndre Swift news. So if we get word that DeAndre Swift is out or severely limited, Monangai becomes really interesting along with Rashad White, just because Monangai is so much cheaper. So that's a good one. My guy's a little more expensive. We got J.K. Dobbins for the Broncos, 5,200 at home against Dallas. Again, we just pick skill position players. Yep. Bottom 5 rush yards allowed and receiving yards allowed to running backs. The Cowboys gave up 144 ground yards 3 weeks ago to a Jets team that's only scored 15 offensive points since then. And they also allowed Carolina with Rico Dowdle to hang an all-time revenge game on them 2 weeks ago. Dobbins is the clear lead back here, averaging 16 touches per game. RJ Harvey is not quite at 8. Denver's got the 4th highest team total on the slate. Dobbins leads the team in touches inside the 10 with 16. The next closest guy is Bo Nix at 6. If there are rushing touchdowns to be had, and I'm guessing there'll be a few against the Cowboys, I bet J.K. Dobbins gets at least 1.
All right. Moving on to the wide receiver position. My expensive pick, Jamar Chase, 8,100. Going up against Sauce Gardner, never ideal, but he's coming off 23 targets last week. He caught 16 of them. The week before, he had 12 targets. So Joe Flacco has targeted Chase 35 times in 2 games. He has more targets in the last 2 games than Calvin Ridley, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, DJ Moore, and Jamison Williams have had all year. Yep, we'll let that sink in just a little bit.
Jeez, that's crazy.
By the way, Chase has scored in both of his prior 2 meetings with Sauce and the Jets as well. So he hasn't put up big yardage days, but he scored, and Flacco's just looking for him over and over again. I don't think that there's a corner in the league. I mean, Surtain maybe, but there's not a corner in the league that is as talented as Jamar Chase is at wide receiver.
If Jamar gets 15 targets against, prime Deion Sanders, he's probably putting up 100 yards, right? Like, so that's a good one. I got Drake London home this week, 7K against Miami again. London has 3 straight games with double-digit targets. Miami's pass defense looks tough on paper. That's because teams generally just choose to destroy them on the ground, as they're the second worst run defense. In the last 4 weeks, though, they have allowed some big games to Ladd McConkey, had 101, Tet 6 for 73, even Garrett Wilson on that god-awful Jets team, 6 for 82 and 1. Cleveland couldn't get there last week. They only had 18 passes. So obviously, no receiver ones coming from
mile-an-hour winds and raining. So
yep, man, they were up by 20. So that's really the only knock on London, is that maybe Miami's so cooked that they don't need to throw the ball. But he has a 32% target share, which is good for 4th in the league. So even if they do only have 25 passes, that's still 8-9 targets for Drake London at a great matchup.
All right. I can't believe Mike McDaniel still has a job in the league right now.
I don't think he can believe he still has a job.
Maybe he just maybe the owner in Miami just doesn't want to pay another coach right now.
Could be.
My budget wide receiver, you'll like this, Trevor. Matty Golden, 4,900. We haven't yet seen the Matthew Golden breakout game. It's coming, though. There have also been signs. This week, they faced the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers did nothing but bitch about how the Packers never drafted a first-round wide receiver, who Matthew Golden is. Do we not think the Packers don't want to rub that in his face just a little bit? He didn't leave on the best terms there. The Steelers have also allowed the 5th most receptions and the 8th most yards to wide receivers, so we got that going for us. But I think a budget Matthew Golden this week in a primetime matchup, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like the idea that they would just maybe feed him like 12 targets just to piss Aaron Rodgers off. But no, it's a good call, because he's got a couple end arounds recently too, a couple carries. Like, they're obviously trying to get him more involved, and I think we're getting there a little bit.
Touchdown yet? That's coming.
No, yeah, I agree. And well, what better way than Sunday night? So, although I don't know, Matty Golden. I don't know if I've heard Matty Golden. No, I believe it's a full Matthew, but okay. So I'll go with
as a Matthew. I get to do that with other Matthews.
That's fair. Although he's a Matthew with 2 T's. I don't know if that's
that's.
I guess I don't know the legalities on Matthews. Okay. So we'll skip the Matthews and we'll go to Tez. Tez Johnson, 3,500, Tampa's receiver against New Orleans this week.
Wait. Is Tez short for Trevor?
I would be surprised.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Devontae or something. I don't think Trevor. Trevor doesn't have a lot of short fours. Maybe Trev, but so without Godwin and then Evans for most of the game last week, Tez turned 9 targets into 58 and 1 against a good Detroit defense. Last 3 weeks, even with a lot of the Mike Evans, those guys playing, he's got 59, 45, 58 yards, including 2 touchdowns, and he's played 70% of the snaps over the past 2 weeks. Just so we don't really know a lot about him, right? He's a 7th round pick who weighs less than I do, which I'm not a large man. Johnson is an elite short area athlete. He's got an 83rd percentile burst score and a 93rd percentile agility score, according to Player Profiler. And he had over 80 catches and 10 touchdowns in each of his final 2 years at Oregon. So for somebody getting under 4th K that might get 6-7 targets on a team that could score 3 touchdowns, you could do a lot worse.
You're not a large man, but Tucker Kraft is. He's my expensive tight end pick, 4,700. I probably should have just used Jordan Love as my quarterback this week too. And I have a feeling when I make a few Fanball lineups, I'm going to have a Matty Golden, Tucker Kraft, Jordan Love kind of lineup going in a few of them here. I just have to believe that the Packers are going to do everything to make Love look like the next big thing right now. And Kraft is where the bread is buttered or slathered in melty, gooey cheese. The Steelers have allowed the 8th most tight end yards, and 4 different tight ends have top 10 Fanball points, and that includes Hunter Henry having 8 catches, 90 yards, and 2 scores. That seems like a legit ceiling for Tucker Kraft in this one.
Yeah, I like that. He's there's only a couple guys at tight end that can really give you a ceiling, and he's one of them. We'll get to another one here. I got George Kittle as my expensive tight end pick, $5,400 at Houston. He'll be under-owned. or low owned, I should say, because he didn't catch a pass last week. He did play over 80% of the snaps, though, and ran routes on all but 4 of Mac's 28 dropbacks. So he's involved like he normally would be, just didn't get the ball last week. The role's good. He's just a volatile player sometimes. Prior to last week, 0, he'd actually broken double-digit Fanball points in 13 of his last 16 full games. And half of those 16 full games includes 20-point-plus performances. So if it's coin flip that he has 20 points and it just came up tails last week, I have a good feeling about his production against Houston. Jackson does have a very good tight end defense on paper, but it's one of those where they didn't face anyone. The best tight end they faced was Mark Andrews without Lamar Jackson. So essentially, they haven't faced anyone like George Kittle.
That's true. My budget tight end, Dalton Kincaid, 4,200. Had a bye last week, missed the week before, but he's back in practice and good to go. He's averaging more yards and more touchdowns than both Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. He's Josh Allen's favorite. Carolina, bottom 10 in every stat against the tight end position. It's hard to throw to wide receivers against Carolina. The passing path is through the tight end. And last week I went to bat for Mason Taylor in this matchup. He had 0 targets at halftime. I was very depressed. Then they put in Tyrod after halftime, and he had 5 targets in the second half. So, to me, it was a 10-target performance. I'm chalking it up as a win. I just think it's a little too easy here. I think Dalton Kincaid gets a ton of targets, and he scores a touchdown in this one.
Yeah, that's a good call. I'll go with a different Dalton cheap tight end. We'll go with Dalton Schultz, 3,400 at home against San Francisco. Schultz had a decent role even before the Nico Collins injury, and it sounds like he's 95% going to miss the game. Schultz has had 3 straight 6-target games until last week when he saw 10 targets, resulting obviously from the Collins injury. He did turn those opportunities into 9 for 98. San Francisco's had an okay tight end defense on paper. However, since losing Fred Warner, the best tight end coverage linebacker of the league, gave up 5 for 51 to K. Otten and then 7 for 62 to Kyle Pitts last week. Christian Kirk and Schultz are both limited in practice but expected to play. The other thing here is there's nobody left. It's mid-round rookies, Braxton Berrios, Xavier Hutchinson, like kind of zeros. Dalton Schultz is like a quality, reasonable NFL player, and that should be enough to get him 6, 7, 8 targets.
All right. It's deep sleeper time. We're going to have you go first since we're staying with the tight end position. You got another tight end.
Yeah, I think I like this one better than Schultz. We'll see. There's a lot of injury stuff on both these guys, just kind of surrounding on their team. So we'll go with K. Otten, 3,700 at New Orleans. Without Evans and Godwin last week, Otten led the team in catches and yards. In 2024, there was a 3-week stretch in which Mike Evans got hurt in the first half of the first game of that stretch. The next 3 weeks, Otten went 8 for 101. The next week, we had no Godwin or Evans, 9 for 81 and 2. The next week, without both, 8 for 77 and 1 again. Tampa is going to be without Mike Evans, probably Chris Godwin, probably Bucky. Egbuka is limited, but I think he'll play. It's actually the rare week where I think you can get away with playing 2 tight ends as well. If you want to play, you got Dalton Kincaid and K. Otten or the double Daltons. So I think K. Otten is my favorite of the cheap tight ends this week.
Dalton Kincaid Otten. Make it together.
You've been on fire today with the I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, and then what was something about Kraft and butter or something.
Melty gooey cheese. Come on. All right. This is the fire you want right here. I'm the king of segues, but this is the fire you need. My deep sleeper, Troy Franklin. He's 4,000. He had 10 targets last week. He only caught 3 of them, but he scored a touchdown. And it's because 4 of those targets that he saw last week were in the red zone. In fact, all of the Denver wide receivers that we have here, including Cortland Sutton, who's a great red zone target, Troy Franklin leads the team in red zone targets this year with 10. Cortland Sutton has 6. He's averaging almost 7 regular targets per game, too. And it's Dallas this week, and they've allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers with 12 so far this year. Troy Franklin will score a touchdown this week, maybe 2.
I haven't heard anyone talk about Troy Franklin, but I like the way you laid that out. That's a really good, that's an interesting option.
See? On fire.
That was good.
I don't know what I'm doing with my hands, but on fire. Little tiny flames coming out of my hands, I guess.
There you go.
Do you have a lineup that you want to list off for us?
Yeah. I don't feel amazing about it yet, but we're close. We're in the ballpark. So at quarterback, we'll go with my expensive option and your cheap option, Lamar and Joe Flacco, Rashad White, JT, and currently I have CMC in at the flex. I might put Bijan over him. And then receiver, we'll go Golden, Drake London, K. Dotton in the wide receiver / tight end position, and then Dalton Schultz at actual tight end.
All right. You didn't go with Dalton, Kincaid, Otten together. you still can. There's still time.
There is time.
All right. Time to put up on the video screen the Fanball 5x5 options this week. Trevor, I don't know if you've taken a look at these options this week, but there's some pretty interesting plays. A lot of Cowboys players that are highly priced that you might not see in too many lineups, but George Pickens, Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson, they're all pretty good here. I think the one that that's gonna stick out to you is Rashad White at $1. You're gonna hammer home on that one.
Yeah, I have 3 standouts. Rashad White at $1. Cortland Sutton at $2 against Dallas. You just talked about Troy Franklin. Cortland Sutton's better than Troy Franklin. No offense. So I think that's a decent bet. And then JT at $5. If this wasn't if you could put somebody a bit higher than $5, JT would be at like $8. But he's stuck at $5, so just take the value.
I like it. Just a reminder on GameBlazers, they have $750,000 in guaranteed cash prizes in free roll contests this regular season. So you should probably get over to GameBlazers, including a big $75,000 week next week. It's free to play. It's literally free to play. Now, you got to put in a little bit of money to, build your roster of guys and have some fancier packs, but you can get in for $0. Go check it out.
I opened some packs last week, and it's fun.
It is fun. It gives you that little dopamine hit when you open them up and you get a big card. It's
you get a nice puka. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Promo code FFAD, by the way, for a $100 deposit match for first-time depositors. Go ahead, register today. Trevor, anything else you got going on this weekend? You going to a Gopher game? You're going to head all the way down to Iowa? See them play?
No. We'll watch the pig game here, and hopefully we pull it out. We beat Iowa last week, being the Gophers for those listening.
Yeah.
They beat Iowa 2 years ago in Iowa for the first time in like 20 years. So can we make it back to back? I'd be surprised, and then check out NBA on Fanball. Just went live this week too. So.
Oh yeah, NBA time. All right, that's awesome. All right, we'll talk to you next time, which I guess is next week on the next Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Thanks, Trevor. See you later.
This was Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts.